Well, this USC game week doesn't feel like we thought it would before the season, but Oregon still needs the right outcome here to keep their playoff hopes going. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. So if you have not already, like, comment, and subscribe, rate, review, please, and thank you wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Speaking of subscriptions, by the way, we have hit 4,200 on YouTube. Thousands more on podcasts. Thank you all so very, very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. You, it. I kind of combined those words there. Anyway, tough start to the show. Let's get into it. This USC game doesn't mean as much to people outside of Oregon as we thought it would. The line is up to 16.5. That's a crazy thing to say. Before the year, I think Oregon opened as like a look-ahead line is, I think it was like 2 or 3 points, somewhere in there. I think at one point in time, it was actually Oregon -1, which is almost a pick 'em. Now it's 16.5 on account of USC kind of being in shambles right now, at least defensively, and Oregon playing a really strong brand of football. So to everybody else, this game's going to kick off at 7:30 Pacific time, won't get as big of a rating, not going to be as much in the national spotlight. But to Oregon, this game still means a heck of a lot. And the reason is that when you look at where Oregon sits in the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings, they're the highest ranked one-loss team in all of college football. Do they have the strongest resume? No, they actually do not. They have a really good loss to Washington. They have a great win at Utah. And they've played a bunch of other teams that aren't very good, but that Oregon has beaten soundly week after week after week, a la Michigan over in the Big Ten, whose schedule is an abomination to college football. So USC comes in as a big underdog this week, still 7-3. It's not like they're a bad team. You know, Washington beat them. They didn't blow them out. They beat them by 10. It was a late touchdown. It was a good competitive game. Utah as well went in and beat them, but they didn't blow them out. They won on a game-winning field goal. So USC, it's why that line 16.5, it's a lot, but it's a lot because USC's defense is not good. So Oregon obviously can't lose, or else the Ducks' fate to get to Las Vegas is not in their own hands. They'd be out of the college football playoff conversation. But Oregon's resume right now, being number 6 in the country, is predicated on the close loss to Washington and how they played in that game and how close it was to going the other way, but also, and perhaps most importantly, the fact that they have beaten every other team aside from Texas Tech by double digits, and the backups have gotten in a lot of those games. They got in against Colorado, they got in against Stanford, they got in against Cal, heck, they got in against Utah, something I did not have on my bingo card this year. So, and Washington State was, again, a 20-point win until they scored late in the ball game. When you look at the landscape of the 14 playoff for college football this year, it is supremely crowded. This is not the first time this has happened, though, right? Everyone's worried, I think. Not everyone, but I think some people are worried right now about, oh, man, some really good team with a great resume is going to get left out. There's a world in which that could happen. There are still 3 weeks left in the regular season, and we still have rivalry week to play. A lot can and will change between now, when I'm recording the show on November 7th, and the end of November going into conference championship weekend, which also matters as it pertains to the 14 playoff. The teams that are vying for those spots are going to have 4 games left on their schedule. That's about a third of a season. That's a lot. There are a lot of games left. Teams are going to lose. Upsets will still happen. It's why they play the games on the field. But USC coming to town as a 7-3 team, that's a respectable opponent, right? This is not Cal. This is not, I know Cal played USC tight, but Cal's 3-6, and this is not a, Hawaii, Portland State, or somebody like that. This is still a USC team that is good. They're not great, though. They're bad compared to their preseason expectations. Arizona is 6-3, and they're in the top 25. USC 7-3, and the sky is falling. They fired their defensive coordinator. Different standards and different expectations. But a big win would continue the trend of Oregon beating teams comfortably and looking good doing so, and would continue to pad their resume in a way that, if Oregon were to win this game, let's say by 20 points and just barely cover the spread, I think that could do a lot for the Ducks to keep them as the highest ranked one-loss team, because Texas and Alabama are nipping at their heels. They're nipping at their heels, and Oregon fans should be watching Texas and should be watching Alabama because they're coming up. Ole Miss is going to fall from the one-loss ranked teams, or from the ranks of a one-loss team. I don't even know what am I trying to say. They're going to fall from the ranks of being a one-loss team when they lose to Georgia this week. So that'll take them out of the picture. Penn State probably loses to Michigan. No guarantee, though. That could throw a wrinkle into things, though not an entirely bad one. And then Michigan, Ohio State still have to play. A lot of things can play out. But coming down the stretch here, recency bias is a thing. Oregon's resume to this point has been primarily predicated on winning games like this in a big way. They could use another big margin of victory against USC. And I think it would help keep them right there as the highest ranked one-loss team. Now, one thing I'm curious about in this game is USC's motivation level, because Caleb Williams, of course, was showing the emotion last week. And I mentioned this on Locked On Pac-12, but most of you probably didn't see that. So just a quick thought on that. I saw some national pundits come out and say, man, I feel bad for Caleb Williams. I don't whatsoever. Caleb Williams could be playing for a national championship and playoff contender right now if he'd stayed at Oklahoma. He chose to go to USC. That's his choice. More money there. Lincoln Riley there. Bigger branding opportunities there. Okay. He won a Heisman Trophy last year. Great. But Alex Grinch was his defensive coordinator at Oklahoma, and they stunk there too. And I got no sympathy for the guy. He's, by the way, I'm all in on the Caleb Williams hype train. I want my Seahawks to get him, but that's not going to happen, of course. So I think he's a fantastic player. Just absolutely good. I'm not someone's like, oh man, he's so overrated. No, he's really good. He's really, really good. Dynamic player. Tries to do too much sometimes. Really, really good. But the people who were saying, I feel bad for him, the defense is so bad. No, he chose that. Life is about choices. And he chose to go to USC with Alex Grinch. This is what you get. So I do wonder about USC's motivation level, because the Pac-12 championship is still in play for them. They're 5-2 in conference play. They only have 2 games left here in the regular season. They're 7-3 because they played, Notre Dame. So their bye actually comes before the Pac-12 title game, or what will hopefully be just before bowl season for them, where Caleb Williams almost certainly won't play. Maybe he will. But I just wonder, after another deflating home loss to a good team, Alex Grinch gets fired and it feels like everything is coming down at around the program and in the program. I just wonder, because that I can see it going in that direction where it just continues to tumble and spiral, and they just got to flush it and move on to the offseason. I could also see them rallying around the fact that, hey, we didn't like Alex Grinch and we want to play hard for Lincoln Riley. We want to show people this, that, and the other thing. I tend to lean towards the former. I can't rule out the latter. I'm curious to see what USC comes out. Like what sort of fire they come out with in the game. Whether or not, if Oregon gets them down, 14-3 early, if they just get dejected and throw in the towel and everything like that. But really, their defense has just been not very good. So it's hard to say, what their feeling is going to be, what their motivation level is. But they're certainly playing a really good team, as we know, in the Ducks, who have had some really good second halves this year, reminiscent of a certain era of Oregon football that we all look back upon fondly. I look upon PrizePicks fondly because that is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in all of North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports is just you against the numbers. That's it. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than and 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you'll watch the winnings roll in. With basketball season here, you can pick combo projections across football and basketball. So you can do like LeBron James and Travis Kelce combined over 10.5 3-pointers and receptions. I'd probably go over there. LeBron hits 2 or 3 threes. All you need is 9 receptions or 10 from Travis Kelce. That's kind of the only guy Mahomes throws to. If you think like I do, go bet it over at PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Yeah, that was tea. Ginger tea for the second segment sip today. Mailbag time. YouTube comments or Twitter, always available if you want priority mailbag access. A chance to talk with me one-on-one all the time instead of some of the time over on social media. You get my rapid reactions and thoughts and breaking news and everything. You can become a Locked On Ducks insider over at SUBTEXT. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnDucks or click the link in the description below. Free 14-day trial, then just $5 a month. And you get all those perks. If you don't want to do that, not a requirement. Absolutely not. This show continues to be free and available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. This question from Garrick. I grew up and remember always watching the Ducks in at halftime with Chip Kelly and know they would come out a different team, a true second half team. I've been getting almost this same feeling from Dan Lanning's team this year. Do you think we have returned to being a second half team? Well, Chip Kelly was always very good at the halftime adjustments. I could argue Nick Aliotti was even better. The defenses for the Ducks, like the offense was kind of the same throughout the game back then. The defense would come out in the second half and just not allow any points. It was awesome. And I loved going into halftime thinking, man, we're down 3 points. That's not enough for them. Or, oh, we're up 10. This game's over. They're only scoring 7 points in the second half. Oregon's second halves this year have been very, very good defensively. The offense is just consistent, right? It's one of the things I love about Will Stein's offense right now. It's multiple, it's versatile, it's clever. It's not the same every week. They get the ball to their playmakers. They push the ball down the field. They utilize everybody, and their skill sets. They do an awesome job. And they've got great personnel and they use them exceptionally well. But they are great on opening drives. They're great in second halves. They're great. Like they've just been really good and really consistent all season long. That's been a great thing for the Ducks. But defensively, the numbers back up what you're seeing there, Garrick. And I felt it too. Because here are Oregon's second half points allowed this season. 0, 17. That was against Texas Tech with all the penalties. 7, 6, 0, 14. That was against Washington. 11, 0, and 6. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. Let me do a quick math calculation here. Just to kind of put a bow on what I'm talking about here. Don't have to add in the zeros, of course. They are allowing about 6.7 points per game in the second half this season. For those of us new to football, that's just under a touchdown and an extra point. And you look at the offensive numbers, like Cal's a perfect example. Game at the half was 35-13. Oregon ends the game 63-19. 35 in the first, 28 in the second. And by the way, there have been some games like Colorado or Utah where I feel like the offense, because they've built such a big lead on the back of phenomenal defensive play, kind of takes their foot off the gas a little bit because they don't have to be, attacking all the time and they can be vanilla and just hand it off and run the clock out a little bit. And I think that's really smart. Style points matter, not at the expense of getting certain players injured and putting them in situations they don't need to be in. So, yeah, I think Will Stein's done a great job. He has been a fantastic hire. Here's a question from Spice Aloe Smith. Points for a creative name, my friend. Hi, Spencer. When's the last time you remember the D-line forcing this many turnovers? Seems like most of the interceptions this year have been a direct result of the pass rush, not to mention the forced fumbles on the quarterback. Yeah, I'm with you. Like in the spirit in which you're asking this question, the defensive line is outstanding. I think it's one of the best Oregon has put together, since Chip came onto the scene and the Ducks really elevated going forward. And it's been, full steam ahead for the last 15 years or so. I think this is one of the better defensive lines. I think it's one of the better overall defenses that we have seen, period. And I'm excited to see what Dan Lanning and his staff are going to do in year 3 and how they develop the young guys, the Terrence Greens and Johnny Bowens and Michael Gardners and Amari Washingtons of the world. And you got Mateo and Tatum Tuioti and Blake Purchase in there and Amarion Winston at the edge as well. And then you got Aydin Breland, Elijah Rushing coming in. I'm really excited about what they can continue to do on that side of the ball. I think that the last time I can think of the defensive line being this impactful was 2014. Some people might jump to 2019. That wasn't really a great defensive line as much as it was one great player, Kayvon Thibodeau, a bunch of solid players, but really it was, Kayvon Thibodeau and everybody else. And then you had a top-notch secondary. The defensive line was solid. Popo Amavai was on that defensive line, by the way. We know he's a good player. But Kayvon Thibodeau was dominant by the time, his freshman season was winding down. Excuse me. And the secondary was just awesome. Javon Holland, Verone McKinley, Brady Breeze, Thomas Graham, Diamondor, Lenore, Nick Pickett. Like those guys, they were ballers. Across the board, numbers reflected that. But I think D-line specifically, 2014. 2014, with DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead, the team that went to the national championship game, that offense was explosive, dynamic. Mariota won the Heisman, of course. But those two guys were game wreckers, especially Defo. I mean, Armstead was really good. A little inconsistent, I think, with his play at times and his effort. That, of course, has turned him into a Pro Bowler in the NFL. But hey, what do we know? Like the concern I thought was more valid with Armstead than it was with the other guys. Like Penei Sewell, I don't know about this. Like, guys, stop being ridiculous. The whole offense in 2018 literally suffered substantially with Penei Sewell not on the field. Boy. There's this Family Guy scene where a bunch of British guys are sitting around a fireplace and they start doing that and they just try to one-up each other and they go in a circle and they're just behind their newspapers and eventually they're just doing it really loudly. That's what I was doing there as I muted my mic because nobody needs to hear that. So 2014 is the answer. Defo is just a beast, and I just see defensive linemen in the backfield all the time. I think Dorless is kind of Defo light. I think Eric Armstead and Jordan Birch have got some similarities in that when they show up in a big way, but maybe they're not there, all the time on the stat sheet, but they're always there making an impact and taking up double teams and drawing attention. But there's just so many playmakers. Casey Rogers is strip sack. Sam Taimani's been a beast. We know what Dorless can do. And Popo Amavai is probably the best interior pass rusher after Dorless on the team. I love this defensive line. I love the whole defense and really the entire team. I think they are fantastic top to bottom. Okay. Bunch of recruiting questions here. And then we got a Star Wars one to end the show. Gosh, I love doing that. Absolutely love it. Let's get to one here. This question from Dane. Spencer, I had a question for you. Do you think that we have any chance of getting one of the top quarterbacks? Maybe flipping one of the top quarterbacks because Bo is a senior. Maybe do you think quarterback is good enough on the roster, or will we use the transfer portal again or start Ty Thompson? I know we have a couple 4-star quarterbacks. I just didn't know if it was going to be within reach to maybe flip one of the 5-star quarterbacks. I love the direction the program recruiting is headed, though you can never have enough defensive players. I think Lanning and company are very aware that you can never have too many good defensive players. So this is going to be a big topic in the offseason. I don't want Oregon fans always answer your questions. I'm not going to go as in-depth on the quarterback stuff right now because I want to reinforce the message. Like, we talk about recruiting and all that sort of stuff for 9 months in the offseason here on the show so that things can materialize on the field in a way that allows Oregon to be competitive at a high level. That's what we want. And this team right here, right now, can compete at a high level, can get to the college football playoff. And if they get the right matchups, could be the one that breaks through, wins the national championship. Who knows? Oregon coaches year 2 in the past have had some success. Cristobal, Rose Bowl. Helfrich, national championship game appearance. Chip Kelly, national championship game appearance. It's gone well so far for the Ducks coaches in year 2. So I don't want that to get lost. I will, however, answer the question because I try to be a dutiful and honest podcast host, and I appreciate you very much sending the questions in. I also appreciate FanDuel being America's #1 sportsbook because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. So if you haven't joined FanDuel, you can go and place $5 on the Ducks, who are a 16.5 point favorite. Just place it on the money line, which will probably be like minus 450 or something, and you get $150 if the Ducks win. Yeah, it's that simple. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, got a great interface, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. You can get your college football gambling fix as well. If you want to bet Oregon minus 16.5, by all means, I wouldn't hold it against you. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, back to this question here from Dane. Just a clarifying point. Luke Moga is listed as a 3-star. Martin Van Buren a 4-star. Those are the true freshmen coming in. You have Austin Novosad, the former 4-star, who will be in his second season, and you have Ty Thompson, who will be in his 4th season of college football next year. He'll be a redshirt junior, but he'll have 2 years of eligibility left, and hard to not think that Ty Thompson isn't the leader to be Oregon's starting quarterback next year with the way he has looked. I mean, the throws he's making, it's what we've been waiting to see. He has shown it to this point. Now, he's got to earn it in the offseason. But every time he comes out in a game like that and looks that way, and we should get to see him again against Arizona State. I would love to see him on Saturday against USC. That'd be fun. But I think that Arizona State is the game that we should be able to see Ty Thompson by the end of it. If he keeps looking that way, I think the odds of Oregon adding a transfer portal quarterback are just continuing to go down. The coaching staff has got a lot more information than us, and they have their own thoughts for sure. But with regards to recruiting one of the top high school quarterbacks, no, I don't see that, because even if Moga or Van Buren were to flip, because they didn't want to come in and be a second quarterback. Moga's been a lot more active on social media. So I think Van Buren would be the more likely of the two to flip and go elsewhere. Even if that happens, I don't think Oregon's going to go after one of the 5-star kids. I don't think they need to. I can see a world in which Luke Moga or Austin Novosad become a starter one day. And I see a world in which Ty Thompson is a starter next year for the Ducks. So those are my thoughts on the matter for now. This is from Nate. Same kind of question. Spencer, very premature question. I agree, Nate. I completely agree. Going into the 24 season, what are the odds we fill the quarterback room through the portal with Cam Ward? Supposedly there are rumors that Wazoo has leaders in the locker room openly looking to transfer, given the downward trajectory of their season and the overall program with realignment. Unsure how valid these rumors are. I have heard nothing of the sorts, though there is an inherent logic of, I don't want to play in the Mountain West. I want to play at the Power 5 level. I'm good enough to do that. So I'm transferring away from the Beavs and the Cougs, which sucks. It all sucks, and it's stupid. Regardless, would you envision Ward as a possibility if Ty isn't the guy next year? And do you think he'd be a plug and play with our offense? Thanks. Yeah, I mean, he'd clearly be a plug and play, and his experience would put him above Ty Thompson. Cam Ward is going to go to the NFL after this year. He'll be drafted in, 4th, 5th, 6th round, somewhere in there. That is my expectation. I don't think he's someone who's going to transfer again. If he did, he's already transferred once. So if he transferred again, he'd have to be a graduate student, but I don't know if he'd be able to play right away. I think he would either return to Washington State for another year to boost his NFL draft stock, but more than likely, I think he's just going to the NFL. John sends this question in. Spencer, are you concerned that the top 11 recruits in the 2024 class are on the defensive side of the ball? I'm concerned that the offense is losing some importance on the program. No, I am not, for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't remember a time in which having an elite defense in college football hasn't been beneficial. Every time Oregon's had a top 30 defense, they've tended to, win at a high level. Top 30 defense 2014. Top, 10 or 15 defense in 2019. Yeah, those were New Year's Six / BCS Actually, no, that was all New Year's 6 because it was the first year of the playoff in 14. Those were all big bowl wins and national championship caliber teams. 2019 less so than 14, but 2019 was still a very, very good team. I think with the portal, it's easier to find. Like you can find a lot of guys, and frankly, you can do this on either side of the ball. Like if I'm Dan Lanning and company recruiting in 2024 and beyond, I'm thinking, okay, I want to find the best players possible at the high school level, whatever position that is. See how many guys we get, see how many flip, and what our class actually is, and then from there, look ahead and go, okay, do we have holes we need to fill in the portal? That's fine. They've shown a propensity to bring in high quality transfers on the offensive side of the football. Bo Nix, principally among them. Once upon a time, they brought in this guy. His name's Bucky Irving. They brought in Noah Whittington. They brought in Trayshawn Holden. They brought in Casey Kelly. Like there are just a lot of guys. You know, Kelly's, I think, has been a really good number 3 tight end. He was in a lot Saturday against Cal. Had a really nice game. He's someone I think I should have shouted out on Tuesday's show. But I don't have a concern there because whatever you feel like you are lacking in the high school class, you can make up for in the portal. And this coaching staff knows how to work the portal and has been really effective in bringing in guys that are going to help them and have helped the Ducks win football games. The other thing, too, is when you look at the recruiting class and you look at the 23 class, there are plenty of skilled offensive players in there, okay? Kenyon Sadiq, in all likelihood back next year, I think he's going to be a stud. I really do. Jurion Dickey is redshirting this year, based on what we can tell. Kyler Casper has redshirted once, has immense potential. Tez Johnson and Gary Bryant, by the way, and Trayshawn Holden could all come back to the Ducks next season if they wanted to. I think the weapons department, completely fine. Offensive line, big priority for this team and this coaching staff. And that's been evident in recruiting. I mean, Poncho's starting as a true freshman. Connerly's a sophomore. We'll see if Cornelius goes to the NFL or not. Marcus Harper has more eligibility if he wants it. JPJ, his draft stock is probably going to be really high. He could go to the NFL, which would suck. I'd love to have him back. But you just look around. I'm not concerned about the offensive depth because they're focusing on defensive recruiting. I think Lanning and company knew when they showed up, we got to retool this roster to do what we want to do defensively. We've seen that take place here in 2023. They get their guys in there and boom goes the dynamite. The defense is popping. So no, not worried about it. Final question here from Rex. A little Star Wars action. I'm always here for it. Got a mailbag question for you. I know there's only a handful of colors, but what if some of the Pac-12 coaches were Jedi Masters? Who are they and what color would their lightsabers be? Well, I'll be honest. When I wrote down my notes for the question, I forgot the first part of it, which was who are they? So I'll come up with that in a moment. But color-wise, I think they would all pertain to the color schemes of their school. So I picked a few. Like Kalen DeBoer at Washington, obviously is taking purple. Lanning's got to have a green one. Lincoln Riley has to have red because he's at USC. So they're the bad guy and their colors are red, technically scarlet. But yeah, Lincoln Riley would have a red lightsaber for sure. I could also see Lincoln Riley kind of having the evil white lightsaber. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Chip Kelly would have the traditional light blue, the Luke Skywalker OG, because he's down there at UCLA. And then here's a good one. Jonathan Smith would have the dark saber from Mandalore. Why? Because sometimes you forget about him right until you don't. And then you realize, kind of a potent, powerful thing going on over there. So he'd have the dark saber. Now, comparing those guys to individual Jedi, I'm doing this like right off the cusp here. So Lanning is very energetic. He is young. He is not deemed the chosen one. Lincoln Riley's Anakin Skywalker, by the way, because he was dubbed the chosen one. So he's definitely that. DeBoer is very powerful, just really good. Washington's won 16 straight games. It's really impressive. So I think he's Mace Windu because that's just kind of what he's known for, like just being a really, really powerful Jedi there. So DeBoer's Mace Windu, Lincoln Riley's Anakin, Chip Kelly is Luke Skywalker. Once upon a time, was at the center of everything. Now he's an afterthought, but still involved. That's Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. I have plenty of thoughts about that particular component. Jonathan Smith, if he has the dark saber, I mean, with the Ahsoka series, we can count Sabine Wren as a Jedi, right? I don't know that word. I like Ahsoka. I like Jonathan Smith to be Ahsoka. I like that because Ahsoka went off and kind of, hid for a while, stepped away from the Jedi Order, like wasn't on everybody's radar, but is really, really good. Yeah, so I'm gonna make a quick switch there. I'm gonna give Jonathan Smith the white lightsabers and make him Ahsoka Tano. Lanning, though, he's the center of our universe. He is wise. He is outspoken. He's got a green lightsaber. He's Yoda. Dan Lanning is Yoda, but like combat mode Yoda. Okay, not this like hunched over, just kind of moseying along. No, he's the Yoda that turns around in the middle of Order 66 and cuts off the heads of a couple of clones who are trying to kill him. So, yeah, I like that one. Action Yoda, Mace Windu, Ahsoka Tano, Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker, all coming up on a podcast. How about that? That's a hell of a way to end a show. And we'll do it just like this. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, go Ducks.